One of the gravest predictions concerning Donald Trump appears to be on the verge of materializing. It's a vision that stems from a woman who captivated the world when she accurately foresaw the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy. She provided specific details that only became apparent years later, and her chilling premonition of that fateful day in Dallas reverberated through the public, permanently cementing her standing as a formidable psychic.
It's incredible to look back at that. To have that kind of foresight about Dallas. It shakes you, but her visions didn't stop there, did they?
Not at all. She also unsettlingly predicted the mysterious and premature death of Marilyn Monroe, capturing the profound sense of loss and intrigue that would soon envelop the Hollywood icon's passing. Dixon's insights into Monroe's ultimate destiny left many completely baffled as to how she could possibly possess such foreknowledge. And even more astonishingly, Dixon issued a warning about a violent attack on the Pope long before any such incident transpired. Her prophecy depicted a chaotic and perilous situation at the Vatican, a scenario that would later unfold in reality, which only further enhanced her enigmatic aura.
When someone gets things like Kennedy, Monroe, and the Pope right, you have to pay attention to whatever else they saw, especially when it comes to predictions that were kept hidden.
Exactly, because perhaps most disturbing of all are the predictions Jeane Dixon made about Donald Trump. These prophecies were deemed so alarming and contentious that they were intentionally kept hidden for years, concealed from public view until now. Very few people are genuinely aware of the complete narrative behind Jeane Dixon's visions. The precise details of what she observed have remained hidden from public scrutiny. Shrouded in secrecy for decades, her prophecies spoke of immense power, dramatic downfalls from grace, and an underlying darkness, something far more sinister than anyone dared to imagine.
So these weren't just standard political forecasts. These disclosures hinted at occurrences that would fundamentally destabilize the very foundations of society. It makes you wonder if they were meant as warnings, or if they were literal portents of doom that we can't escape.
That is the pivotal question. Jeane's predictions were meticulously documented, her words preserved in delicate notes and emblazoned across old newspaper headlines. Yet over time they were dismissed, overlooked, and nearly erased from memory. Now, as the clock continues to advance and the world undergoes immense change, it seems her warnings may have emerged too late for us to heed. The events on the horizon possess the capacity to redefine our world in ways we can scarcely conceive. Forces are converging and the indicators are becoming impossible to disregard. What lies ahead could fundamentally alter the course of history itself.
Before we dive deeper into the astonishing visions Jeane Dixon experienced, we want to invite you to take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Prophecy in Conversation. Your support enables us to continue exploring these mysterious and thought-provoking stories, bringing them to light for a broader audience.
And I want to add, if your faith is rooted in God and Jesus Christ, pay close attention because what you are about to discover goes beyond mere historical curiosity. This is a spiritual alert, a message that speaks to the soul and warns us about the challenges and revelations that may soon unfold. If you feel compelled to explore the deeper mysteries of prophecy and hidden knowledge, consider becoming a channel member. Your membership not only supports our mission, but also grants you access to exclusive content and a community of like-minded seekers on this journey through the unknown.
Let's really look at who Jeane Dixon was. She wasn't just a typical fortune teller fabricating stories for amusement or idle interest, was she?
Far from it. Her reputation was built on a foundation of striking predictions and a unique presence that distinguished her from others in her field. Dixon's name evoked a combination of wonder, apprehension, and intense debate. She was a figure who could inspire awe, provoke fear, and spark controversy all at once. Born in 1904, she often spoke of receiving her prophetic abilities as a divine gift from God during her early childhood. Unlike many who kept their visions private or vague, Dixon's prophecies were delivered with boldness, shared openly with the public, and at times proved to be astonishingly accurate. Her life and predictions continue to fascinate and disquiet, prompting us to ponder the true extent of her foresight.
That public boldness is what really defined her, especially considering what she said in 1956, years before the world could even comprehend such a devastating event.
Yes, in 1956, she made a prediction that would later haunt the nation. She foresaw the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy, a vision that seemed almost impossible at the time. Dixon described with an unsettling level of detail the emergence of a charismatic young Democrat who would ascend to the presidency only to have his life violently cut short while still in office.
And when her prophecy became reality in 1963, the laughter and skepticism that once surrounded her claims vanished entirely. The nation was left in shock, compelled to confront the chilling accuracy of her vision.
The impact of her prediction reverberated across the country, shaking the very foundation of public trust and belief. Suddenly, Jeane Dixon's visions could no longer be dismissed as mere coincidence or fantasy. People everywhere began to take her words seriously, wondering what else she might foresee. Because what genuinely set Dixon apart was not just the accuracy of her predictions, but the sheer magnitude of the individuals and events she spoke about.
Her prophecies involved some of the most influential names in history: presidents, popes, cultural icons. Her visions penetrated the highest echelons of power and fame, touching on world events that seemed far beyond the influence of any ordinary person, especially a woman with nothing but a crystal ball and her faith.
She foresaw the untimely death of Marilyn Monroe, the beloved Hollywood star whose passing stunned the world. Dixon also predicted the dramatic rise of communism in China, foretelling a monumental shift in global politics that would shape the century. Even more astonishingly, she cautioned about a terrorist threat against the Pope years before any such attempt garnered media attention.
As her predictions consistently came true, Dixon's renown spread rapidly. But it seems like with her growing celebrity came a deep sense of unease and fear among the populace. People began to ponder, was Jeane Dixon truly endowed with a divine gift? Or was there something more mysterious, perhaps even sinister, behind her abilities?
That debate raged constantly. Some regarded her as a divine instrument, a woman whose visions were intended to guide and alert humanity. Others, however, whispered that she might be cursed, or that her powers stemmed from a darker, more unsettling origin. Despite the controversy, Dixon maintained unwavering devotion to her faith. She was a devout Catholic, and she often asserted that her visions occurred during moments of deep prayer and spiritual introspection.
That potent fusion of religious piety and prophetic insight imbued her pronouncements with a unique authority, especially in a nation where faith played a pivotal role in daily existence. Many Christians believe she was a celestial messenger, someone whose warnings and counsel should not be disregarded.
For decades, Jeane Dixon navigated a precarious course, revered by some as a spiritual guide, feared by others as a prophetess whose words could foreshadow catastrophe. And whenever she directed her prophetic gaze toward America's future, her visions generated ripples of apprehension and curiosity throughout the nation, even among her skeptics. If you have followed the narrative thus far, I am keen to hear your opinions. What do you make of Jeane Dixon's predictions and their influence? Do you believe her visions were genuinely of divine origin, or do you suspect they might have been something far more perilous? Share your viewpoint in the comments section below. I am eager to know what you think about her remarkable prophecies.
But her public statements were only half the story. Beyond the attention-grabbing headlines and the public display of her predictions, an unseen realm existed. It was an environment brimming with hushed discussions, confidential correspondence, and covert meetings that never reached the press.
That's right. Dixon was considerably more than a public oddity or a tabloid sensation. She quietly evolved into a trusted confidant for some of her era's most influential individuals, her renown for astonishing insight spreading through the uppermost echelons of authority. It has been whispered that politicians, Hollywood celebrities, and even international leaders would go to extraordinary lengths to secure private meetings with her, hoping to gain an advantage or clarity on decisions that could shape the destiny of nations.
Just envision the setting: a dimly lit, shadowy parlor in her unassuming Washington residence, a government limousine idling discreetly at the curb, and an anxious aide escorting a senator, a general, or a business magnate through the doorway, their hearts thumping with eager expectation.
In these confidential, off-the-record consultations, far from media scrutiny and public gaze, individual destinies were contemplated, warnings were quietly conveyed, and the very future seemed poised, ready to be influenced by a single word or vision. Some attendees arrived seeking reassurance or affirmation, hoping for a glimmer of optimism during uncertain periods, while others came propelled by apprehension or despair, clinging to the possibility that Dixon's foresight could avert calamity.
Regardless of their motives, nearly all departed with a feeling of disquiet, a sense that they had encountered something enigmatic, perhaps even illicit, and that their paths might have been subtly redirected. Rumors have endured for decades, though never formally confirmed, suggesting Dixon was consulted on issues of national security.
Her visions supposedly subtly guided the strategies of military leaders and diplomats during periods of international tension. Some assert that her prophecies played a part in decisions made at the highest levels, impacting the trajectory of conflicts, peace negotiations, and even presidential campaigns. In times of crisis, did her words genuinely sway outcomes, steering history onto a different course? Or were her insights merely one element in the intricate array of counsel and viewpoints surrounding those in authority?
The truth remains elusive. In the bustling chambers where decisions were made, was Dixon's voice a dominant influence, or simply another reverberation in the chorus of advisors and strategists? We may never obtain conclusive answers. The true effect of those secret meetings is still shrouded in mystery, concealed behind closed doors, and lost to the annals of time.
Yet history demonstrates that when those in positions of power listen, even to the most improbable sources, the flow of events can shift unexpectedly, at times altering the fate of an entire country. Imagine for a moment sitting opposite Jeane Dixon yourself. Would you dare to inquire about your own future, knowing her reputation for perceiving what others could not? Would you opt to uncover the secrets that lie ahead? Or would you prefer to remain in the comforting obscurity of the unknown, untouched by prophecy? Let us know your thoughts. Would you seek out your destiny or turn away from it? Share your perspective in the comments section below.
As those covert gatherings silently receded into history, their reverberations persisted in corridors of power and within the collective public consciousness. Because the world soon found itself confronted by the unnerving exactness of her predictions. Her words, once whispered or doubted, now appeared to materialize before everyone's very eyes.
Dixon's reputation was not a product of mere chance or fortunate guesses. It was founded upon a series of prophecies that consistently came true, each one more astounding than the previous. Repeatedly, the occurrences she depicted in striking detail came to fruition, frequently with a degree of precision that sent shivers down the spines of those who recalled her pronouncements. Each prophecy that transpired was not just a peculiar coincidence. It carried a profound impact, instigating anxiety and wonder, leaving people to grapple with the disquieting query, how could one woman possess such insight into future events?
We have to look back at the specifics of the Kennedy prediction. It was among her most renowned and unsettling predictions, a prophecy destined to stun the nation.
In 1956, long before Kennedy's presidential aspirations were widely known, Dixon informed Parade magazine that a young, blue-eyed Democrat would triumph in the 1960 presidential election, only to meet a tragic end while still in office. She even hinted at the possibility of assassination, a detail that would later haunt the American psyche.
When President Kennedy was tragically shot in Dallas in 1963, Dixon's earlier interview resurfaced, circulating rapidly across the country. The precise nature of her prediction left people bewildered. It was neither vague nor accidental. She had foreseen it, and suddenly the entire nation was compelled to acknowledge her abilities.
Nevertheless, this merely marked the beginning of her extraordinary and occasionally terrifying prescience. Dixon also anticipated the tragic destiny of one of Hollywood's most beloved icons, Marilyn Monroe. She described with haunting clarity a glamorous yet troubled actress who would encounter a sudden and enigmatic end, leaving the world in shock. When Monroe was found deceased in 1962, Dixon's pronouncements resonated through headlines and conversations as if she had glimpsed the precise moment before it transpired.
The mysterious circumstances surrounding Monroe's death continued to fuel speculation and conspiracy theories, and Dixon's prediction only intensified the enigma.
Subsequently, in 1965, Dixon issued a caution that an attempt would be made on Pope Paul VI's life, a prophecy that would soon face verification. That same year, as the Pope visited the Philippines, the world observed anxiously. During the visit, a man lunged at the Pope with a knife, only to be intercepted at the final possible instant, averting catastrophe. Dixon's warning had nearly come to pass, and her renown as a seer became even more formidable.
Her visions encompassed the realms of politics, entertainment, religion, and global affairs, influencing the lives of both the influential and the common person. Of course, not every prophecy she uttered came to fruition. Some faded into obscurity, while others proved incorrect.
However, those that did materialize were so intricate, so eerily precise, that they resisted simple explanations. It was more than mere fortune or random chance. It was as if Dixon possessed access to knowledge concealed from the rest of humanity, as though an invisible power was directing her actions. As we get ready to explore her narrative further, contemplate this. If you were granted a preview of the future, if you could perceive what was approaching before anyone else, would you endeavor to modify the trajectory of destiny? Or would you acquiesce to what was predetermined, regardless of how uncertain or foreboding the path ahead might appear?
This brings us to the core of what we need to discuss today. Among all the insights Jeane Dixon documented, one was never fully disclosed by her publicly.
Those close to her stated it came late in her life when her health was deteriorating, yet her visions grew sharper than ever. She spoke of observing a golden entity emerging from the west, a man enveloped in dazzling radiance, idolized by multitudes, yet subtly influenced by unseen forces, orchestrating his every action.
That imagery is intense. Dixon described how this man would seem to revive hope for a divided populace, but his authority would stem from powers he did not comprehend.
At that period, her statements resembled a puzzle that no one could entirely decipher, but as the years advanced and the world witnessed America's evolution, her adherents began to ponder if this might have been a vision of Donald Trump. For Dixon, symbols were never merely literal. Gold was not simply a hue, it symbolized temptation, affluence, and the illusion of salvation. In one of her last letters, she wrote of a leader who shines in gold but is forged amidst turmoil.
Those words, overlooked for decades, have now re-emerged and feel remarkably pertinent. Trump's buildings glisten with the very color Dixon described. His ascent was as unforeseen as it was unstoppable, captivating millions who believed he was sent to challenge the established order.
And yet Dixon cautioned that such a personality would bring both revitalization and judgment, and that through him, America would face a profound trial of faith. Was the golden individual a pledge or a caution? And if this figure represented Trump, what implications does that hold for what is to come? As we progress, the distinction between prophecy and actuality becomes increasingly indistinct. Jeane Dixon's records from the late 1970s contain a mysterious notation that many scholars contend refers squarely to Donald Trump.
In a journal entry from 1979, she penned, "A figure of leadership shall emerge while the eagle slumbers. His utterances will resonate across countries. He will secure his position not through heritage, but through influence and public display."
She proceeded, "He will pledge to restore the Republic's former glory. However, during his period of power, the spirit of discord will stir." These remarks, disregarded for years, now strike a disturbing chord retrospectively.
Pledge to restore the Republic's former glory. Make the Republic great again. This phrase bears an unsettling resemblance to the motto Trump would employ many decades afterward.
Dixon frequently stated that her prophetic insights extended beyond specific individuals or countenances, focusing instead on emblems that unveiled profound spiritual dynamics underlying occurrences. For instance, the slumbering eagle symbolized a United States in a state of diminished strength. Though proud, it was weary and susceptible to influence.
Upon Trump's foray into the political arena, Dixon's documented observations started to re-emerge within religious and prophetic communities. Some identified him as the chosen individual Dixon had foreseen, a person destined to re-establish stability. Conversely, others interpreting the identical writings cautioned that he might be the deceptive savior. She depicted a figure who would present himself as a deliverer, but instigate turmoil that would challenge global belief.
For those who have followed along, please share your perspective. Did Trump embody the leader Dixon predicted, or was he the cautionary message she aimed to impart? Please leave your comments below. Your contributions significantly influence this ongoing discussion.
During her last years, Jeane Dixon frequently referenced another powerful image, a luminous golden spire being hit by a lightning bolt. Numerous people presumed she was using figurative language, depicting arrogance obliterated by divine intervention.
Yet when Donald Trump appeared publicly with his imposing high-rises, one of which would become synonymous with his identity, the symbolism seemed strikingly prescient. She stated, "Once the golden edifice shakes, humanity will witness the downfall of human hubris." This particular sentence was discovered handwritten in the border of an aged volume of hers concerning the Book of Revelation.
Experts in prophetic studies have established a connection between that statement and her conviction that the United States' ultimate trial would arise not from external adversaries, but from domestic disintegration, vanity, avarice, and spiritual unawareness.
As the Capitol disturbances broke out in 2021, and as America's schisms intensified into animosity, Certain individuals declared that Dixon's lightning bolt had manifested. Her predictions consistently aimed not at retribution, but at enlightenment. It was her conviction that from upheaval, an elevated awareness would emerge, compelling individuals to distinguish between falsehoods and veracity, between superficial allure and genuine substance.
The underlying communication, despite being veiled in allegories, was straightforward. Conceit invariably precedes fundamental change.
Should you subscribe to the notion that all occurrences have a purpose, please consider sharing this video, as somewhere along this historical trajectory, Dixon's admonitions were intended for the current living generation. With her declining health, Jeane Dixon grew increasingly contemplative regarding her prophetic insights. In her ultimate diaries, she discussed not merely prominent figures and conflicts, but also a country facing a pivotal decision point.
She declared that the United States would eventually confront a critical spiritual juncture, where it would either recognize its sacred calling or entirely forfeit its identity. Dixon penned, "The Republic faces a duality of roots, one illuminated, the other misleading, and the global community will emulate the course America chooses."
Individuals intimately acquainted with her stated she frequently wept subsequent to these premonitions, recounting visions of street fires and familial strife. Yet, she also depicted a surviving core of integrity, individuals impervious to falsehoods who would steadfastly adhere to candor and conviction even amid widespread disorder. She held that this polarization would characterize not only the U.S., but all mankind. During a late-life interview, she articulated, "The ultimate trial will not arise from armed conflict, but from conviction. Your objects of devotion will dictate your destiny."
This is where it hits incredibly close to home for us right now. Within one of her last predictions, Jeane Dixon alluded to a distinct temporal interval when the twin twos encounter the turning six. Numerous scholars construe this as an enigmatic allusion to the year 2026. Here we are, sitting in late February, early March of 2026. And these words are staring us right in the face.
For that particular year, she authored, "The eagle shall either regenerate its plumage or forfeit it eternally." This was her metaphorical expression indicating that America would experience a decisive assessment, a period when its electoral and spiritual decisions would intersect.
She envisioned a prominent figure, potentially that identical illustrious individual, confronting unprecedented challenges not solely within human legal systems, but also in the judgment of posterity.
Dixon cautioned that a deceptive tranquility would be presented to the populace, and that individuals earnestly seeking veracity would penetrate the artifice. Her statements appear to portray an era where confidence in governance erodes, where factual reality becomes nearly indecipherable, and where a country's destiny depends on enlightenment rather than political maneuvering.
One might readily dismiss these pronouncements as mere chance, until one considers how many of her prior perceived coincidences materialized. Kennedy, Monroe, the Pontiff. She had previously proven accurate, and her ultimate forecast could now be manifesting directly before us in 2026. As you contemplate this year, reflect, will this be the year of the eagle's resurgence or its decline?
A peculiar notation exists within Dixon's records, which even her most intimate assistants failed to comprehend at the time. She penned about a looking-glass shattering across the nation. For her, the mirror signified introspection, how a country perceives itself. She asserted that eventually America would cease to identify its own visage, that reality and fabrication would merge beyond recognition.
People will embrace whatever they desire to perceive, she documented, and the mirror will splinter when exposed to illumination.
In contemporary society, that fractured looking-glass strongly resembles the digital epoch, mass media, online platforms, incessant clamor. Every faction perceives its individual version of truth. Each image projects its unique actuality. Dixon's premonition of the mirror concerned not literal glass, but viewpoint. She stated that when individuals prioritize ease over authenticity, the snake attains authority.
Nevertheless, optimism persisted even within that insight. Dixon recorded that subsequent to the fracture, a renewed image would materialize, emerging from suffering and remorse. It was her conviction that both America and the global community could only recover once deceptions were brought to light. For this reason, she maintained that prophecy did not equate to predetermined fate. Instead, it served as an admonition, an appeal for transformation.
In her final documented discussion, Jeane Dixon conveyed to an intimate confidant, "A man will emerge on the precipice of profound influence, yet his character will be scrutinized by authority. Through his actions, the divine will evaluate the nation's spirit." Many interpret this as another reference to Trump, not portraying him as a redeemer or antagonist, but rather as an instrument reflecting America's self-image.
She remarked that ultimately, the future would not be shaped by political processes, but by moral awareness. "The radiance will waver," she cautioned, "but it will not extinguish unless the populace permits it."
Her concluding message to humanity was an entreaty for cohesion and spiritual insight. Dixon perceived humanity entering an epoch where conviction would serve as both an instrument of conflict and a means of deliverance. She was convinced that the apocalypse would not manifest through conflagration or combat, but through the erosion of veracity, the fundamental element that unifies existence.
Upon reaching this juncture, contemplate her enduring impact. Irrespective of your belief in foresight, Dixon's compiled work serves as evidence of the enigmatic forces directing historical progression. Her foretelling was not intended to instill fear, it was given to ready us.
Consequently, if this communication has reached you this evening, perhaps it holds significance. Please like, share, and subscribe to Prophecy in Conversation. And if you found merit in this exploration, contemplate offering a super thanks to uphold the channel, since certain prophecies only become comprehensible when it is already too late. Would you like us to explore other specific historical predictions from Jeane Dixon in our next conversation?